most of the world's wild places have been found. Mapped, named, turned into a tourist destination. Kamchatka has not. This is a peninsula on the far eastern edge of Russia. It is the size of California. It sits between the Sea of Okhotsk on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other. And almost no one lives here. There are no highways crossing through it. No train lines. No roads connecting the interior. The only way in is by helicopter or boat. That is why every animal here has never learned to fear humans. To understand Kamchatka, you have to understand the size of it. It stretches 1,200 kilometers from north to south. If you placed it over the United States, it would reach from New York to Chicago. There is one city. One. The rest of the peninsula, all 472,000 square kilometers of it, belongs to the volcanoes, the bears, the salmon, and the silence. Kamchatka sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire. That is the chain of tectonic plates that circles the entire Pacific Ocean and causes 90% of the world's earthquakes. But even among the most volcanic places on Earth, Kamchatka stands apart. Underneath this peninsula, the Pacific Plate is slowly diving under the Eurasian Plate. It has been doing this for millions of years. And the result of all that grinding, all that friction, all that heat building underground, is 29 active volcanoes. On a single peninsula. This is Klyuchevskaya Sopka. It is the tallest active volcano in all of Eurasia, 4,750 meters high. And it has been erupting without stopping for at least 7,000 years. Think about that. While the ancient Egyptians were building the pyramids, this volcano was on fire. While the Roman Empire rose and fell, this volcano was on fire. While every war in human history was fought, this volcano was on fire. It has never stopped. On average, it erupts every 3 to 4 months. The ash clouds it produces are sometimes large enough to reroute international flights across the Pacific. And it is not even the most active volcano on the peninsula. Geologists who study volcanoes all over the world come to Kamchatka to see what the Earth looks like when it is truly alive. What you are watching is not special effects. Not CGI. Not a controlled burn. This is just a normal day in Kamchatka. Deep inside a nature reserve the size of Connecticut, there is a canyon that the outside world did not know existed until 1941. The year World War II began. The year before the first nuclear reactor was built. And in that same year, a Soviet scientist named Tatiana Ustinova became the first person in recorded history to see what is inside this canyon. The Valley of Geysers. Over 90 geysers packed into a canyon 6 kilometers long. The only way to reach it today is still by helicopter. No roads. No trails. No visitor center. You fly in, and the ground starts erupting around you. Volcan erupts roughly every 2 hours. When it does, it throws boiling water 40 meters straight up. The sound it makes is not a hiss or a whistle. It is a detonation. That water is heated by magma sitting just a few kilometers underground. The same fire that powers the volcanoes above ground is pushing boiling water through cracks in the earth down here. In 2007, a landslide buried half this valley under mud. Scientists thought it was gone forever. Within 2 years, the geysers pushed through the mud and started erupting again. This place does not give up. Not far away is Mutnovsky Volcano. Inside its crater, volcanic vents called fumaroles release steam and gases at temperatures above 500 degrees Celsius. The noise inside the crater is so loud you have to shout to be heard standing next to someone. The ground is warm. In places it is hot. And in places, it is thin. This lake looks almost beautiful. But it is close to pure sulfuric acid. Nothing can live in it. And yet, just above the acid line, on the crater walls, scientists have found bacteria. Tiny living organisms that feed on sulfur instead of oxygen. Living in conditions that should make life completely impossible. They are alive here not despite the violence. They are alive because of it. The volcanic heat, the minerals, the sulfur, all of it ultimately feeds the life that lives on this peninsula. The plants, the fish, the bears. Everything here traces back to fire underground. Every year, something happens in the rivers of Kamchatka that no longer happens anywhere else on Earth at this scale. The salmon come home. 6 species of Pacific salmon return to Kamchatka's rivers every year in numbers that have disappeared from almost every other salmon river on the planet. In certain rivers during peak season, the fish are packed so tightly that you could walk across their backs. But they are not coming back for food, or safety, or warmth. They are coming back to die. Every Pacific salmon is born in a river, swims to the ocean, spends years growing in the sea, then returns to the exact river where it was born to lay its eggs. It navigates thousands of kilometers of open ocean using the Earth's magnetic field and the chemical memory of its birth river. It lays its eggs. And within days, it dies. Its body, full of ocean nutrients, breaks down in the shallow river bed and feeds the entire watershed. Scientists have found those ocean nutrients in the trees on the riverbanks, in the soil kilometers from the water. The forest of Kamchatka is partly built from the bodies of salmon. And where the salmon go, the bears follow. Kamchatka has the highest density of brown bears on the planet. Between 15,000 and 22,000 individual bears live on this peninsula. The entire grizzly bear population of the lower 48 United States is around 1,800 animals. Kamchatka has 10 times that number. At Kurile Lake, a lake that formed inside an ancient volcanic crater, up to 300 bears have been counted at this single location at the same time during salmon season. 300 bears. Together. In one place. What is remarkable about these bears, beyond the numbers, is how they move. These animals have no fear of humans. None. For thousands of years they were never hunted out. Never pushed off their land. Never made afraid. Look at that bear. No tension. No looking over its shoulder. No hesitation. That is what an animal looks like when it has lived its whole life without fear. That is one of the rarest things left on this planet. A large male bear can eat 20,000 calories a day during salmon season. By winter he will have gained close to 200 kilograms of fat. Every calorie came from the Pacific Ocean. And every nutrient those bears return to the soil feeds the forest. The volcanoes heat the rivers. The rivers run to the ocean. The salmon carry the ocean back to the rivers. The bears carry the salmon into the forest. This is not a food chain. It is a circle. And in Kamchatka, it is still complete. On the eastern edge of the peninsula, the land meets the Pacific Ocean. These are not gentle beaches. This is the North Pacific. Cold. Deep. Violent. One of the most seismically active stretches of ocean floor in the world. The cliffs here are built from ancient lava that spilled into the sea and hardened into black rock. The waves have carved them into arches and sea caves over thousands of years. In some places, hot springs fed by underground volcanic heat emerge right on the beach. The water pouring from the spring and the freezing Pacific surf can differ in temperature by 80 degrees Celsius. Two of the most extreme environments on Earth. Separated by a few meters of black sand. Then winter comes. In most wild places, winter quiets everything down. Animals go into hiding. Rivers freeze. The land goes still. In Kamchatka, winter makes everything stranger. The volcanoes do not rest for winter. The fumaroles keep breathing. The ground above the magma stays warm even when the air temperature drops to -30 Celsius. The result is a landscape that is frozen and burning at the same time. The salmon are gone. The bears are in their dens. The few visitors who ever come have left. The peninsula contracts. It becomes something close to what it was before humans ever arrived. But some things stay. The Steller's sea eagle has a wingspan of nearly 2.5 meters. A beak like an orange blade. Fewer than 4,000 exist on the entire planet. Kamchatka is where most of them live. In winter, when everything else is gone, when the temperature drops below -25 and the aurora borealis lights up the sky above the smoking volcanic peaks. There is nowhere on Earth that feels more like another world. Or more like the first one. Before the volcanoes had Russian names. Before the geysers were measured and mapped. Before any outsider knew this place existed. People lived here. The Eitelmen are the indigenous people of southern Kamchatka. They have been here for at least 15,000 years, back to the end of the last ice age, when the ancestors of the first Americans were moving east through this exact landscape. For thousands of years the Eitelmen built their entire year around the salmon. The return of the fish in late summer was the most important event of the year. In Eitelmen culture, the bear was not an enemy or a danger. It was an elder, a being with equal claim to the river and the forest. The Eitelmen population today is fewer than 3,000 people. Russian colonization starting in the late 1600s was brutal. A population once in the tens of thousands was nearly destroyed within a century. What survived is now being slowly brought back. Language classes. Traditional fishing rites returned. Ceremonies that almost disappeared now being practiced again. The work of a people who decided they would not vanish. The Koryak people of northern Kamchatka were reindeer herders. They moved with their animals across the tundra through summers and winters. They never tried to build permanent settlements on this land. They understood that a landscape this volatile, eruptions, earthquakes, shifting ground, did not reward permanence. It rewarded adaptability. They understood something the modern world is still learning. Today the most common visitors to Kamchatka's wilderness are not tourists. They are scientists. Kamchatka has become one of the most important research locations on Earth for volcanologists, marine biologists, ecologists, and astrobiologists. Yes. Scientists who study the possibility of life in space. The bacteria living in Kamchatka's boiling acid pools are among the closest things on Earth to what life might look like on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, places with subsurface oceans, volcanic heat, and no oxygen. By studying what survives in Kamchatka's volcanic waters, scientists are essentially practicing for the day we find life somewhere else in the solar system. The salmon research done here is equally important. Kamchatka is one of the last places on Earth where a complete unbroken salmon ecosystem still exists. No dams. No overfishing. No development. What scientists learn here about how salmon ecosystems work when they are healthy and whole, that knowledge is being used right now to restore salmon rivers in Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Japan. The wilderness of Kamchatka is not just beautiful. It is a memory of what the rest of the world once looked like. And a blueprint for what it could look like again. For most of the last century, Kamchatka's distance from everything protected it. It was simply too far. Too hard to reach. Too expensive to exploit. That is no longer true. Commercial fishing fleets operating offshore have put serious pressure on Kamchatka's salmon stocks in recent decades. Illegal poaching, especially of salmon eggs for black market export, remains a persistent problem. Illegal mining operations for gold and platinum have contaminated some river systems, changing the water chemistry in salmon spawning grounds. And climate change is now reaching even here. Ocean temperatures rising. Snow melt timing shifting. Salmon run schedules changing across the entire North Pacific. Kamchatka's glacier feed its rivers through summer melt. They keep the water cool and flowing at the right time for the salmon. Those glacier have retreated measurably over the past 40 years. When the glacier change, the rivers change. When the rivers change, the salmon change. When the salmon change, the bears change. When the bears change, the forest changes. Everything is connected. It always has been. Kamchatka is not broken. Not yet. Not lost. But every force that has destroyed every other wilderness on Earth has now found this peninsula. And what happens to it next depends on decisions being made right now. There is a Russian word, zapovednik, that has no direct translation in English. It means a strictly protected wilderness. A place set aside with no purpose except to be left alone. Not for tourism. Not for research. Not for any human use. Just left alone. Kamchatka has 6 of them. 6 protected areas covering hundreds of thousands of hectares. Places where no hunting is allowed. No mining. No permanent buildings. The one rule is, do not disturb what is here. In those protected areas, and in the vast roadless interior between them, this peninsula is still what it has always been. A place where 29 volcanoes still shape the land. Where a bear can stand in a river and feel no fear of anything on 2 legs. Where salmon still die in the same rivers their ancestors died in, and their bodies still feed the same trees. Where a mountain that has been burning for 7,000 years continues, without hurry, to burn. We live in a time that is very good at knowing the price of things, and very bad at knowing their value. The value of a place like this cannot be measured in fish caught, or minerals dug up, or tickets sold. Its value is older than all of those numbers. It is the value of a world that runs on its own terms. That does not need our permission. That does not wait for our approval. That was here long before us. And if we are wise enough, if we are humble enough, if we are careful enough, it will be here long after. Kamchatka's protected wilderness covers over 2 million hectares. Fewer than 20,000 tourists visit per year, compared to 15 million who visit Yellowstone. It is still, genuinely, one of the last wild places on Earth.